Humanity has always hunted for knowledge in the unknown. The wonder is, not that the field of stars is so vast, but that we have measured it.
Rocksteady Studios' game Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League released the other day, as you know, and Bethesda Studios has released a new update for their video game Starfield. One of the biggest parts of that Starfield update is major changes to ambient lighting and light effects. You go into a room and it's basically darker, has better shadowing, and so on. I suppose it's an improvement, if anything, just to hide how horrible and ugly all the NPCs are, and hide all the defects and seams and whatever else. Considering the game's character modeling and a lot of its structures look worse than Fallout 4 and maybe even Fallout 3, I can see why they'd want to make that less obvious. The update includes AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3 being available for Steam users, boosting frame rates per second, and allegedly creating smoother gameplay. There are other fixes and improvements. It's kind of not worth mentioning though, because let me be honest, no update or mods are going to fix this game or Suicide Squad. I wanted Starfield to be good, I really did. I've liked some of what Bethesda has done in the past, Fallout 3, the Elder Scrolls stuff. I even went hardcore for their MMORPG Elder Scrolls Online for a few years, after they'd released enough expansions to make it worthwhile and before the cash shop stuff got out of hand. Like many of you, I was excited with the news of a space game by Bethesda. I was even more excited by their second trailer and the lengthy game footage and narrative walkthrough that Bethesda put out for the game. The one that misled many, including myself, into believing we'd have real space exploration and seamless travel to worlds and open worlds to explore as well. I mean, there was that one part in that development promotional video where we're on a planet and the character looks up at the nearby moon and the developer, or maybe it was Tom Howard, states that the moon we're looking at we can go to.
Liar!
The obvious assumption was that we'd get on our ship, fly into orbit ourselves, then out to the moon and land on it at a location of our choice, or just fly around over it, like Star Citizen and a number of other games who have managed to deliver that experience. Nope. They failed to mention we'd have like 7 loading screens to get to that point. Failed to mention your ship flying on worlds is all just a cutscene you have no control over.
Fuck.
Failed to mention that each world is just a tiny area that you can explore. That to make it seem larger to their customers, they didn't give us land vehicles, overloaded us with ridiculous carry weight, and sapped our stamina so that running around was restrictive and tedious, assuming you found a place with anything worth seeing at all.
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
You get a spaceship to land on other worlds, and you do not even get a land buggy to transverse the landscape and dump your stuff into. It's kind of ridiculous. And the ship itself is kind of pointless also. I mean, you can soup it up and that's nice and all, but you don't really fly around with it that much. It's mostly just cutscenes and loading screens. They also didn't provide maps, or what they did provide as world maps were worthless. And these are just some of the problems. I was so excited for Starfield and thought we'd get a game like Star Citizen. Perhaps not as good as that game, surely, but something like it, because they were marketing it like it was that type of game. Well, it wasn't. And it's not just game mechanics and features that disappointed me. The game's a leftist Trojan horse. You can have whatever views, whatever politics you want, doesn't matter, to each their own. But nobody wants to have that crammed down on them when they're playing a video game. I've noticed the steady movement of the studio towards heavy promotion of leftist politics though, frequently featuring it prominently in videos discussing game development, cramming it down our throats. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League also went woke, and like with Starfield and just about everything else that gets stuffed with leftist content these days, that material nearly always comes at the cost of the story, character development, writing, and other important aspects from combat to exploration. I mean, they hired people to come in and police content to promote leftism and insert little things into everything from dialogue, quests, to putting pride flags in and on the Hall of Justice. There is a direct correlation between intersectional diversity, militant feminism, and the anti-white agenda being pushed in games, movies, and TV shows, and a drop in game quality in practically every case. Same thing with movies, same thing with shows. Star Starfield promoted leftism and the intersectional diversity message all over the game, and this is the direction of Bethesda now at every level and everything they are working on. Keep that in mind because they are still making games and they are doubling down despite Starfield's failure. And there is news of Bethesda doing a new Indiana Jones video game, and you better believe it's going to be stuffed with the Marxist woke nonsense. I noticed that the trailer for the game tries to target traditional Indiana Jones fans and selectively downplay or hide everything they are really doing to the IP. It's going to be a woke mess. It's going to disrespect the characters, the franchise, and its fans. To promote the game, Bethesda featured people of their game development team talking about the direction of the game, and all of them were very obviously and desperately signaling their leftist social politics. The many intersectional diversity boxes each person represented as a marketing ploy. Very intentional, there for a reason.
Now we have the opportunity to tell a new Indiana Jones story for a modern gaming audience. Our game is all about putting you in Indy's shoes, letting you see and feel what he sees and feels.
Hell, he's even got a pride flag lapel pin on. Now, if you were a liberal and this guy was wearing a MAGA hat, well, that still would not be remotely the equivalent to this. This is Bethesda trying to get their ESG score up and signal to the progressives, also among game reviewers and media companies, to give them the same special treatment they got for Starfield, with reviewers and news media praising the game despite overwhelming negative audience feedback and reviews on Steam and everywhere else. The game is a stinking hot woke mess that has huge problems at its foundations. And politics aside, the game is just trash. Mind you, some liberal content I am fine with. Every conservative is quite used to having that stuff shoved down their throats in some way or another, but there is a limit and the tone of it has gotten vicious and quite insane, crossing from mere liberal or socialist into outright over-the-top Marxist, anti-white, racist, anti-male propaganda. It's mean and insulting and intended to be. These game developers are also so desperate to appease all these activist segments of society and foreign nations, including China, that what ends up getting produced is nearly incomprehensible, confusing, contradictory, and lame. There is a misconception by many in the gaming and movie industry that you have to check a bunch of boxes to make your content appealing to audiences worldwide. That's not true. In fact, when making movies for Americans, not dumbed down, not simplified, not checking boxes, but targeted towards Americans with cultural and regional distinctions unique to America or the West,
That's the US of A you're talking about, pal.
there's huge demand for that product overseas. Foreign audiences are not put off by it, as some suggest. Quite the contrary. That's been the case for 80 years. It's amazing how a good story that's well delivered and not trying to do anything but entertain will please practically anyone, because ultimately the tales and tribulations of real men and women is timeless, natural, and universal, that virtually all of us can understand and relate to on some level, and that goes both ways. Consider that Godzilla Minus One, despite needing favorable response from American and Western audiences to truly be financially successful, nevertheless was much or more for Japanese audiences as anyone else. Entirely filmed in Japan, spoken only in Japanese, about the Japanese and for them, but focused on a good story, good well-developed characters, and good special effects for their few Godzilla scenes. And Americans loved the movie. It made something like 10 times what it needed to be considered a financial success. We didn't need to understand every nuance of Japanese culture or history to appreciate this movie. And that used to be the overwhelming drive of most movies and games. A good story and good characters, not dumbed down or filled with nonsense. If you please your people and the fans, all the rest falls into place. The saying goes, if you build it, they will come. I would alter that though, instead to say, if you build it well, they will come. Suicide Squad was not built well, and neither was Starfield. With Starfield, I suppose the biggest thing, or first thing anyway, that hit me was that it just didn't look good. It looked old, like it'd been made 10 years ago. Suicide Squad, the same thing. Hell, the Arkham Knights games that were more than a decade old looked better. Literally looked better. Starfield's character creation was horrible. All the characters either ugly, bland, or unremarkable, and that's the game's appearance in a nutshell. Sterile, bland, and sapped of life, like the development teams and Tom Tom Howard's souls and creatively bankrupt. In Starfield, by the time I got to New Atlantis, I was already unenthused and just knew it was trash.
Garbage day! Huh? No!
But it really sank in when I tried to ride the rail system, or whatever it's called, thinking that surely I'd get to see the city from a rail car at least. I mean, right? But it was just another loading screen. Lame. Now, mods and updates will cut down on some problems and some of what people complained about for both of these games, but all they will manage to accomplish is sprinkling M&Ms on a pile of crap. The writing is bad. The copy and pasting of buildings, dialogue, NPCs, sprinkled across isolated tiny theme park islands, repeat quests, lame main story. There is just nothing here to build upon. Its core is rotten and just nothing. And Suicide Squad, in the process of making their game and trying to get a few little jokes in, managed to destroy their own IP. Both games should have been stopped in early development, and you all know it. What those of you who might defend these studios for whatever reason should be doing is making these people pay the price for what they did here, because that's the only way they're going to learn a lesson. They will eventually do another Elder Scrolls game, and if you don't want that to be a steaming pile of crap, make them feel it where it hurts. As for Rocksteady Games, I don't know about their future at all. They may have just destroyed themselves. The politics and social engineering need to go. The rushing of games out before they're ready needs to go. A great story, great writing, and great characters need to be at the heart like it is of any good book. If they build it well, people will come. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. And if you have any thoughts about this topic or future videos you think I should do, let me know in the comments. Have a blessed day, guys.